right. So the weekend has just begun right here in the studios of TV3. George and Amma have been ushered into a weekend. Maybe some 2 weeks to Christmas, I guess.
Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right. Certainly, I feel the Christmas spirit with the trees around us, the decor. Certainly, everyone is being warmed into that feeling. I mean, even whether you have the money or you don't have the money, we are pushing you into it. So make sure you join the bandwagon. Of course, don't let it be all about money. Ideally, the purpose is to celebrate Christ. So, I mean, if you don't have money, just be quiet in your little corner and let people know that it is Christ you are celebrating and everything will be fine. Yes, without money.
George,
Jesus himself will provide.
Oh, that will be cool. But I want to know, what do you guys want for Christmas? I might talk to Santa and then sort things out for you.
Well, wouldn't be bad.
What about you, Dada?
Yeah.
I think I want something for Ghana.
Okay.
So I want happiness, and I want all these talk shops to stop.
Okay, that's true.
So that we're actually doing things to see a change. I want to see the Ghana that I want my children to come and inherit. So yeah, I pray God gives us that.
All right. Let's see if that happens.
I don't know if Santa can carry the whole of Ghana. All regions just come and put
Okay. Good morning, Accra. Good morning, Kumasi. Good morning, Cape Coast. We're on your screens this morning from now till 9 a.m. The show is about to take off. This is the best breakfast you can find in town across the globe on 3news.com. We're streaming live. Thanks so much for another day in the life of you who is watching, and I'm sure you've said your prayer as you get out of your bed to be part of that productive society we need this morning. It is all nice around when you begin to see the colors, the Christmas colors. But hey, don't forget one thing. There's more life after Christmas. Don't eat everything. Make sure you save some for the lean season after Christmas. From now to 9 a.m., we'll take you through the newspapers. We'll take you through what's in store for us. A daily round is there. But George will start the day with a lot of news and let you know what's happening across the country. But hey, I have been trying to see, is the Hamatan really here or it's not?
It's here. It comes and then it settles down. But certainly, I know it's here because I have a funny feeling in my throat. And a lot of people seem to be complaining about like the flu-like symptoms, you know.
Swine flu?
No. Far from it.
It's not swine flu.
It's not our portion.
I'm trying to see. I'm not seeing the Hamatan we used to see when we were kids.
It's not so
during
strong.
Christmas. It's not that strong. I'm just waiting for it and really see when Christmas will touch our shores. But gradually, it's coming. I told you Johnny is on the journey to arrange the Christmas festivities. So on 24th, yesterday he made a plea, but
Mary wants to eat fufu. So please, those of you who have cassava, kindly send it to
us.
We'll post it to Johnny, and then you feed Mary before she delivers. But have you noticed there's an increasing trend of motorists, particularly those who are on the motors? They drive in the opposite direction. I don't know if you've met any recently, but I'm wondering where that phenomenon is coming from. Because, if they agree that they're registered and their vehicles, they're supposed to be, or motos that are allowed to be on the road, they're supposed to use this in the same direction as the flowing traffic. And so you can't go against traffic.
When it's even amber and red, they just
pass. And I mean, this is the time where we know a lot of accidents are likely to occur. So I would want MTT, to be up and doing about this. They should arrest. We should see the punishments, because when you don't punish, everyone thinks it's fine. Let's go along, and then it becomes a norm. It becomes a thing. That's the same way Okada started. We talked about it, but right now is here to stay. And so even if they are here to stay, they need to follow and abide by the rules that exist in the country.
I've seen a couple of police officers attempting to arrest these motor riders, and I don't know, but it was what we've been seeing in the Hollywood movies. You can see the racing on the roads, and it didn't work for them. The guys got away. I don't know how well the police can deal with these persons, but it's really difficult because the guys are very good at riding, and so they're able to get away from the police quickly. But I sort of believe that the police can find a way to deal with them. I mean, these motors are registered motorbikes, and they get renewed all the time. So if they can quickly pick the numbers and do something, but hey, let's see what happens there. This is a country where some of these things are very, very difficult to deal with. We'll find out exactly what the police will do.
Yeah, but it's time for the news.
My name is George Crane. It's time for some news here on NewDay. Thanks for staying on to our very first story. One of the 12 people named as being part of those who orchestrated the Central Medical Stores fire in 2015 says the investigative report into the incident lacks merit. Alhaji Inuya Yusuf, who is pleading innocent, says the findings into the incident that cost the nation some 350 million cedis worth of medical supplies does not represent a true account of what caused the inferno.
The Central Medical Stores of the Ministry of Health was raised by fire on the 13th of January 2015, leading to the loss of 350 million cedis worth of medical supplies. An investigative report, among others, established that the fire was deliberately set. It also named the suspect, one Samuel Dogbe, a labourer at CMS, as the arsonist. Speaking to TV3 News, Alhaji Inuya Yusuf, who is also a former management member of the medical facility, maintained he is completely innocent. He says he was only forced to speak about the issue after several failed attempts to seek redress.
I waited for almost 2 years for the justice to be done and the people who banned the CMS to have been caught, and then the Ghanaian public will know. But unfortunately, the story that the minister sent out kept repeating itself in the media. I sent petition to the minister, the AG, and the National Security Coordinator. They did not respond. That was immediately after the statement was issued. I sent another petition to the current minister, the current Attorney General, and the National Security Coordinator. Again, no response. I decided to place a formal complaint at Shraj. I'm waiting for response. But the media keep repeating that same story. So I think that I owe myself a duty, and my children, and the people who look up to me, a responsibility to clarify. Because some of them don't even know that I have a petition out there.
He believes the conclusion of the final report only seeks to divert attention from the real perpetrators of the act.
Even the staff who were named, they were not in talking terms. So it is mind-boggling. It is practically impossible to have 11 people who were not in talking terms to come together to pay somebody. So if this comes out in a security report, then I get worried. This could not be a security report. And so many other people who were invited reported on the fact that there were a lot of communication problems. People at the same who were not talking terms. So how could anybody come with a list like this and say that they were those who burnt the place? It is just purposely to divert attention from those who really burnt the place.
Alhaji Inuya Yusuf revealed that it was upon his tip-off that the labourer who has been implicated as starting the fire, Samuel Dogbe, was identified.
The Dogbe that was named, I met the National Security Coordinator at the Alisa Hotel to tell him that I have confidential information that some people were lurking around the place that the fire started. And he gave me audience, and I told him that.
Since he broke his silence on the matter, Alhaji Inuya says he has been receiving a number of death threats on his life.
Soon after I spoke to the National Security Coordinator, I realized that my life was at stake. I got attacked at gunpoint once, and 2 different occasions. People came to my house at midnight, somewhere 2 o'clock a.m., 2 to 3 a.m. They banged at the gate several times. We said nobody should come out. Then they drove off at top speed. So that is a situation. But I think that I prefer to die on my feet to dying on my knees. It's the Almighty God who owns my life.
The Health Minister, Kwekwa Jimamenu, has already submitted the contentious report to the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevu, for a forensic audit to be conducted into the findings.
To a rather sad development, a 40-year-old woman, Al-Hassan Rahinatu, has been found dead at her residence at Alunani, a suburb of Bimbila in the Numba district of the Northern region, following gunshots in the area on Wednesday, December 12. And according to the Northern Regional Police Public Relations Officer, ASP Yusuf Tanko, a joint military and police team stationed in the area rushed to the suburb at about 8 p.m. yesterday after they heard gunshots. The body has since been deposited at Bimbila Government Hospital for preservation. Preliminary investigations by the police has revealed that the husband of the deceased, Abraham Bediakun, was the target. In a related development, police in Bimbilla have arrested 3 persons with firearms. The 3, Issa Amadou, 26, Mohammed Seydu, 23, and Issa Sank, 25, were arrested by the police patrol team during curfew hours. Another German government is to construct a 4.5 million euro gas plant at Abuaze to augment the energy supply in the country. Feasibility studies are underway and construction of the plant is to begin from next year and concluded by 2021.
The construction of the gas plant is expected to be the lowest price of energy to be sold. The plant is to generate 330 megawatts of power for the first phase for 2023, while the second phase will begin from 2025. Vice President Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia was confident the power generated will address electricity challenges.
Ghanaians can testify to what happens when we have issues with energy supply. And so that is very, very important that this MOU has been signed and we want to move forward to construction and delivery of this project.
Minister for the Economic Division of the German government lauded Ghana government for its commitment.
We are living in a century of digitization, meeting of the people, getting people together, getting people in contact is the things you need to really start a business.
The company to construct the gas plant, Siemens, expressed huge commitment to speed up the process.
We identified them as one of the potential IPPs in the country. They were most successful in their proposition, and we're very pleased that they have chosen our technology, F-class technology, which is most efficient in the world class of combined cycle power plants.
We're mobilizing additional shareholders to contribute equity to the project. The balance of the funding will be in the form of debt, which will be underpinned by the ECA from the German government.
Chief Executive Officer for Ghana Infrastructure Fund, Solomon Asamoah, said this will help government to achieve its flagship programs.
This project took our eye because it's going to be the largest power project ever done in Ghana, and it's going to be the cheapest price. So we think it's a good project that the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund should support.
Away from energy, let's move to the floor of Parliament, where the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation is inundated with debts amounting to 44,989,671 cedis. It is currently in arrears of electricity bills to the tune of 16,816,000 cedis, which has resulted in frequent disconnections by ECG. The First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Wusu, has directed that its financial statement be investigated.
The Minister for Information moved the motion for the House to approve its 2018 budget estimates. The chairman of the committee, in seconding the motion, presented the committee's report, which considered the 107,346,000 allocation as woefully inadequate. An amount of 63,212,000 cedis was allocated to the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation compared to 87,458,000 allocation last year, indicating a reduction of 27%. The report indicated GBC was inundated with debts amounting to 44,989,671 cedis. It is currently in arrears of electricity bills to the tune of 16,816,000 cedis, which has resulted in frequent disconnections by the ECG. The ranking member of the committee, Alhaji A.B.A. Fusedi, said services provided by GBC to other government institutions are not paid.
The GBC this year alone, just for the state and government functions, covered 407 assignments. Mr. Speaker, if we were to quantify that, this in monetary terms, conservatively, it comes to about 13.3 million Ghana cedis that the state owes, Mr. Speaker, the state hasn't paid a penguin.
Other members in their contributions bemoaned the scanty resources for the Information Services Department and the Ghana News Agency, a situation they complained was hampering effective dissemination of information. The majority leader, however, wanted management to be proactive in recovering its debts.
Political parties were advertising for altogether about 3-4 hours every day. A particular political party, and we all do know. Mr. Speaker, that is why we should delve much into this. How much space they bought, what was the cost, so that we'll be able to retrieve equivalent amounts to GTV, GBC. They will be able to settle their indebtedness. Mr. Speaker, if you don't know where you are coming from, you will not know where you are going. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us to situate the indebtedness of GBC in its proper context. The fundamental problem of GBC is encapsulated in the public service broadcasting paradigm that GBC is stuck in.
We pointed it out to them. Their problem is that, Mr. Speaker, with all the programs that they cover, when they give out the bills, they don't even give the amount. They only write to them or say that they have invoice of this amount without following it. We have done that, and we've cautioned them that this time they should make sure they price it and demand payment from all the agencies, and Parliament, you are number one, that you have to pay. So, Mr. Speaker, urge my majority leader also to make sure they pay prompt to GBC, because they are here every day.
When we resume next year, the committee should go into GBC's account and give us a report. How much debt do they owe, and how much is owed to them, and who owes what, so that the House will know the full picture, whether they are indeed an organization in distress or they are just not taking the administrative step to recover their debts.
The House approved the sum of 107,346,067 cedis for the Information Ministry. The House also approved the sum of 183,632,576 cedis for the services of the Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources.
And that report was filed by my colleague Catherine Frimpoma. Away from Parliament, let's move on to the Labour front, where Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress has charged government to, within the next few days, stop Goldfields from laying off 1,200 workers or risk asking all Ghanaian workers to stop work. Addressing a news conference in Accra, Dr. Yauban Stanley asked government to be swift lest the economy be grounded to a halt.
Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yauban, was reacting to the decision by the management of Goldfields to lay off 1,200 workers. Management of Goldfields cited worn-out equipment and the inability to make profits as challenges. But the mother union, the Ghana Mine Workers Union, said management of Goldfields failed to negotiate redundancy packages for the workers. The management of Goldfields has secured a letter from the Labour Department of the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations to lay off the workers. The Trades Union Congress has described the action as unfair.
The Labour Department has given them the green light to go and sack this number. What is the basis for that? You did not even consult the Union Labour Department. And that is why we have told government that we need to strengthen these departments.
The Secretary General again asked government to step in or risk their wrongs.
The law of Ghana allows sympathy strike. If the employers have forgotten, we want to remind them that if there is a need for the entire TUC, for entire trade union movement to come and support my workers union, we will.
Dr. Yauban implored government to consider reviewing the agreements of all mining companies in the country. General Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union, Prince Ankra, has filed a legal suit to stop management from laying off the workers.
The best way to get an independent organization of that nature repeatable to tell her that, hey, you went wrong, and obviously they are right. But then the literature that we are cited, I believe that can be exciting. So it's just a question of making sure that we will sort the right approach.
The Ekwapimampo demonstration school is overcrowded. 30 to 14 hearing impaired pupils use one class contrary to the acceptable 15 to 20 pupils. Headmistress of the school, Trudy Segbefia, says the situation is negatively affecting teaching and learning.
The school was established in 1967 in the Ekwapim North Municipality of the Eastern Region to ensure access to education to hearing impaired pupils and vocational students. Over time, pupil enrollment at the basic level has increased to 440, outnumbering a special class size. This has compelled school management to put 30 to 40 hearing impaired pupils in a class against the acceptable 15 to 20.
We wish we have more space to space them out. The BC results just came, so we're still admitting, but currently we have 440 thereabouts.
A dormitory and vocational center infrastructure that could ease the woes of the students have also been left uncompleted over 10 years now.
Away from education, let's delve into agriculture, where 50-year-old Philip Kwekuajiman is the fourth farmer from the Bono Ahafo region to have won the coveted National Best Farmer Award since the scheme was instituted 30 years ago. Larry Parkwesi Moses caught up with the celebrated farmer and filed this report.
As a young student, Philip was always enthused to follow his father to the farm whenever he had the opportunity. At age 22, he went into farming as a full-time venture. From a rented facility, he started his first poultry farm with 300 birds. Today, Philip's farm has 45,000 birds with an average yield of 930 crates of eggs. Philip also owns a 31-acre cocoa farm, which employs 60 farm hands in Doma East. He has also acquired an additional 115 acres of land for cocoa plantation. His target is to produce 1,500 bags in few years. The farm feeds on organic manure from fowl droppings as part of its crop management strategy.
We get 125 acres, but this year we 115 acres.
I have 125 acres of cocoa farm. My target is to have 1,500 bags of cocoa beans every year.
3 years, maybe 2 years. And to me, say, my target is 1,500 a year.
The National Best Farmer also cultivates fruits and is into any business as well. Fish farming is also another area of interest. However, lack of capital is a constraint to the business.
If we don't have enough rains, it really affects our ponds and we lose a lot of fish fingerlings. But if we are able to get support from government, it will boost our fish farming business.
Philip believes farming is lucrative and rewarding and urged the youth to take keen interest in it. For the 28 years that he has taken to farming, Philip Kwekuajiman has won 5 awards, including this year's National Best Farmer Award.
That's it by way of news this morning. Many thanks for making time with us. For more news updates, log on to our website 3news.com. Alternatively, you can join the news team at 12 on Midday Live. I'm Josh Quinning. New Day continues after this break. Good morning.
Well, it's time for headlines now. We'll start off with Daily Statement, which carries a couple of stories. It says, Ministry of Finance launches citizens' budget. Also, President Akufo-Addo has received honorary doctorate degree from the University of Liberia. Then the senior minister cautions public servants by saying, stop the unproductive acts. And then finally, Ghana is to have the first vaccine factory in Africa, and that's what the Vice President is telling us.
I have always talked about the civil servants and public servants and the attitude to work. It's really a border when it comes to looking at how productive we can be. In in some arguments that I have heard, there's a counter one that seems to suggest that, look, public servants in other developed countries might be paid better than what ours receive here. That is why perhaps they look more productive. But the issue is that, is there not a way we can make them productive? Now, if you go to the private sector, the reasons why, one of the reasons why private sector is really vibrant and very active is that supervision is key. Exactly. Okay. You check the private schools that are scattered across Accra. You find a private school in a very dilapidated structure, just a few wawa boards knocked together, and the kids are sitting under it. And yet, at the end of the BEC, they are those who are making the A's. You have public schools, very good structures, and yet they are not doing well. If you go under and find out, the reason is simple. Supervision is key to these private schools. The public servant, who checks what they do, who makes sure that they are at work at 8, who makes sure that they are closing at 5, okay? Who makes sure that they don't go to the office and read newspapers and work out lotto numbers. Exactly. I think we have had too much talk about getting public servants to be productive, getting them to stop unproductive acts. I think this is the time for us to go in there and try and push them to do what is right. And that is making sure that supervision is very good. Look, if you put down one giant notebook that if I come to the office, I should write my name, Kwesi Amfo, 7 a.m. Look, the person who's sitting behind the book, he knows me. I mean, we are friends. So I come at 9:30 and I'm able to write 7 a.m. Exactly. It happens. Okay? So this is the time we need to stop the talk. What can we do to get them to be active? Stop unproductive acts. Make sure that the 8 hours spent at the office is well spent. This is the time to do that. I think we have had too much talk about civil servants, public servants, and productivity and all that. It is time for us to act to get them to work.
Certainly, Bright. I don't even know what else to add to it because we keep talking about it. But what I will say is the fact that, you know, attitudes or behaviors, there's conditioning. If I do something that is wrong and you don't punish me for it, Bright, naturally I'm going to think it's right. My body is going to, you know, become accustomed to that fact that because there's no repercussion thereafter, let me continue doing it. And so when we talk like supervision, if there was, if you give someone a task to do, you've given me a week to accomplish A, B, C, D. At the end of the week, if you come, if I know you would come and assess whether I really was able to execute those tasks you gave me, then I'll sit up. I'll know someone is looking out for me. And so I know I have to be productive. But here's the case where everyone seems to be doing the same thing. And even when you try to be different, then you are the one who's chastised. But if we know everyone is going to be punished for not executing their duties, you're going to be laid off. Your salary is going to be deducted. The already small, meager salary you're getting, something is going to happen, and then you sit up. But until those happen, I mean, everyone is doing what they want to do. People are taking leaves for funerals, people are taking off days, sick days, just because they know, like you said, whom you know. I know the person who's going to come for the records, and so I tell them, oh, Friday, me Juma, and we'll do it. But that whole honesty, do we really carry the sense of I'm working for the government or I'm working to bring productivity to the whole nation, and not about self-serving, that it's what will make me comfortable that I will do? Because people usually are in the public sector now because of the small monies they'll get on the side. Obviously, they're not looking at the salary because the salary wouldn't do much for them if that's someone's argument. But that whole, once I come and I tell you, oh, if you give me this amount, I can shorten the process for you. That's the whole excitement. And so even instead of staying in their office to do their real work, they'll be doing the side works because that's what fetches them money, because no one is checking. And until then, we'll still keep talking about it.
What stops, for instance, the various ministries and departments, those who would want to check this unproductive acts as put out by the senior minister? That look, every Friday, let us put together a team to go and check if every person at these ministries, we can do one ministry at a time. If indeed every person is at work, because we know that on Fridays and these days even on Thursdays, 12 midday, people have left office because there's a funeral here or there. Okay, so time to act is now. We should stop talking about it. It's been decades of shouting, worker labor is unproductive, and so what? This is the time to stop talking and check. It has been done in other countries. It can be done here. Supervision is the key. That's it.
Yep. But anyway, it says Ghana is also to have the first vaccine factory in Africa. Right. I'm happy to hear this, but the truth is we have issues. Ghana, as it even stands now, to the best of my knowledge, has issues when it comes to storage of some vaccines because of our electricity situations. Right. In Accra, oftentimes when we talk about these things, we look at the big cities.
Yeah.
Those may have the infrastructure to sustain these vaccines. So you have a cold room, you have a storage process that is supposed to be followed. It's called the cold chain. Sometimes electricity goes off. You don't know how to store your the vaccines. If the refrigerator is kept cool for maybe 24 hours, good for you. But if it doesn't, you break the cold chain, and therefore the potency of these medications or the vaccines. And looking in the districts, I've been to some districts where they are attempting to have the gas-fueled refrigerators, and even those are not working. You have people who have to walk about hundreds of kilometers with, ice chests and what's it called? Ice cubes. I mean, they have to do something. It's called appropriate technology. They have to make do with whatever they have. But these break the cold chain, and we know then the vaccines are not effective. And so for me, if you're going to have a vaccine factory, then it's because you are thinking, okay, if we export, it's costly. If we're doing ours in Ghana, then it's going to cut down the cost. But it's about how you keep it, how you preserve it. We should look at that, because after you've made the factory, if you can't preserve them and they're going to be impotent as it is, then what's the point of having a vaccine factory? So certainly we applaud it, but as they look at it, they should critically look at the cold chain process and the electricity situations in the districts so that we can solve this.
I will not be surprised that we'll set up the factory. Okay, we'll produce very fine vaccines because we have the brains. We'll produce very fine factories. We're told it's in partnership with some Germans. So we'll set up the factory, we'll produce the vaccines, and then take them to maybe Germany to go and store them. And then anytime we need them, then we bring them back to come and use. I will not be surprised at all.
Wouldn't wouldn't that defeat the whole purpose of having set up this factory?
Well, look, if we set up the factory first before thinking about storage, I tell you, it can happen.
Right.
Okay, because like you said, I have been to the Wasa East District, Wasa Kropon and beyond. Every CHIPS compound that I visited had a problem with how to store vaccines.
Right.
And so every morning at the child welfare clinic, the young nurses there would have to trek sometimes 12 hours to go and bring the vaccine. And like you said, this is some container, whether it is an ice chest, and the vaccines are in them with ice blocks. We are told, I'm not a scientist, but we know that the temperature should be at a certain point. It has to be there. If it goes down, there is a problem. Okay, and they trek and go and bring the vaccines because they don't even have the facilities to store vaccines in their health centers, their CHIPS compounds. Okay, so then at the end of the day, like you said, the potency is down. So good to set up the factory, but I guess that first of all, let us look at how to store them. If we know how to store them, if we have what it takes to store the vaccines, then a very good, brilliant idea to set up the factory in Africa. As for being the first in Africa, I don't want us to boast about it again. We were the first in Africa, south of the Sahara to attain independence. This is where we are. We can't even deal with plastic waste. Rwanda has been able to do that. Common plastic waste is a problem for us. It's all over. It is virtually getting every one of us dead. So great idea, but let us begin to pick the pieces first before we begin to. Other than that, we'll fly and crash. That's it.
Yeah, certainly. Anyway, let's move on to Daily Heritage, which also says inflation rises to 11.7% in November. And then Achim Tafo turns red. Chief residents hit street over Kukrantumi as municipal capital, and they want to vote against MPP in 2020. And then also the mine workers warn Goldfields, and they'll storm Parliament today as they caution, don't dare us. And then finally, there's a story that says, let's promote history and civic education.
I see.
But right, the question I want to ask, really, say there's a job, there's an institution. If we think we don't have the right equipment or we don't have the capacity to sustain a number of workers, will the process not be to say then we're laying off, which is what we've seen happening? So I'm not sure when you say don't dare us to government or to Goldfields, really, what is your threat going to do to them if that is the only thing they think is going to remedy their issues, okay? Then secondly, I think they have a point in saying that Goldfields has put out on their website that their equipment can go a certain span, a lifespan. But in attempting to lay off the workers, they have reduced the lifespan, saying that it's because these machinery or equipment will not work beyond a certain time. And so looking at the productivity thereafter is going to be low. And so we can't sustain this number of workers. So I think both of them really have issues that have to be addressed. And so I don't think it's about threats. I think it's a point where you have a concern, a genuine concern at that. Sit down, let's discuss. Find the medium or middle ground. If there's a severance package which you think you're duly owed, of course, I would think then they should get it. But this whole threatening strikes, they don't all go well for all of us as a country.
Reading the story in the Heritage, I think the workers might have a case in what is happening. I mean, you see, this is what Goldfields and several other organizations they're doing now. What they do is that they outsource a part or sometimes majority of the operations to other institutions. So transport, it is outsourced. Let's say the accounting department is outsourced. Now, when it happens, these workers are put on contract.
Right.
The outsourcing institutions employ these persons on contract. And so their benefit, their entitlement that is due them are not exactly as they would have been under the original employer.
Right.
I think that is exactly what the workers are complaining at Goldfields. And the workers' complaint is because they think that Goldfields wants to make abnormal profits. Because of that, they want to outsource all their departments so that they let go of certain bills that they need to pay when they come in as the bigger employer of these workers. And that is what the workers are not too happy about. And they think that government has a role, Parliament can come in and speak to Goldfields. But like you said, I think that it's a matter of sitting down and talking. 1,700 workers isn't a joke. The last time Goldfields laid off some workers, we saw what happened at Obuasi. The whole economy of Obuasi came crashing in a way because the monies that the guys got never stayed there. Up to today, the effect can be felt if you go to Obuasi. So I've heard the Trades Union Congress, the boss saying that they won't sit down for Goldfields to take them for granted. Like I said, time to sit down and talk. If indeed Goldfields' aim is to make abnormal profit, then I guess they can sit down with the workers and decide on what to do. But simply laying 1,700 workers off at this time when already unemployment is a big issue and government is scratching its head to get it fixed, we might not be heading into.
Don't forget to add inflation too is rising, so the
cost
of products will also be more.
It's normally because of the season.
Exactly.
We might see inflation rise up a bit because this is the season that you find a lot of people trading and the city itself wouldn't be too happy at this time because there's so much pressure on it. But some have argued that, on the other hand, it is also at this time that you find a lot of remittances coming in from those of our friends, our brothers, our girlfriends and boyfriends who are outside the country. So they think that it should be a balancing act. Whilst pressure is on the city for people to go and buy and come and sell, the remittances that are coming, we're told that Ghana receives over $2 billion worth of foreign cash from remittances. So maybe we need to take a look at that and see how it can check the CD and other indicators from doing well.
Anyway, so you've heard us talk, but also people are speaking out there on the street about corruption. Well, you know, public officials are supposed to declare their assets, but we know that the act is faulty in the sense that the processes that lead to the declaration are not too right, or we don't really understand it, because all we understand it takes is for you to submit a sealed envelope to the Auditor General as to whether you've really declared
all that you own in that.
Yes. And it's
but
not
no one gets
open.
to know.
Exactly. So whether you really declared or you just wrote on the paper, stop worrying me, no one knows. But anyway, we shared our views on this before, but let's see what people out there on the street think as they rant with George Queenan.
Corruption in Ghana has been common since the day of independence. However, there's a growing perception that government-related corruption is on the rise. But one thing that was initiated to help fight corruption is the Asset Declaration Act. But is it really achieving its purpose? For instance, the Auditor General, Daniel Dumelovo, has tagged it as a joke because it's more concealing than revealing. Is it even helping the fight against corruption? This is Daily Rant. Let's keep talking.
At least it's good. Very, very good. Because here we are saying corruption here and there. How can we, put away this canker? We can't put away unless this thing has been infusion, okay? But at the end of the day, I feel like there's more.
I'm against you.
Yeah, why so?
It's my personal life, so really? I'm not supposed to bring it like to public for everybody to know
public
what
office, yes. No. In because of your personal life. So you would take all the accounts as personal as yours. No, that's what you are telling me right now.
Secret before. So after my term of office, you can then bring it out. Maybe when he was coming into office, this is what he
after the corruption has been done.
Then that one you can decide whether it's corruption or it's not.
The problem here is that we live in a culture of silence, in as much as be it our religious affiliation or even within our public sector. Now, if our leaders are coming to serve us, they are not coming to enrich themselves. So basically, they need to be held accountable for whatsoever they wish or they want to put it in the public domain. This is because, one, if you look at infrastructure work, even the act of rural-urban migration, as a result of letting, maybe I'm from the northern part of Ghana, people migrating from the northern part of Ghana, coming here to make a living, then at the end of the day, a public officer who is expected to what? To help build Mother Ghana will end up doing sharing and looting, you know, trying to do something.
Some people who are in there who know how to invest. The little that they have from the government, maybe they have salaries and whatever. Remember, they can invest it and get something. Big money. Yeah, get big money. We have some people who are very good in investment. You understand? So when we are going to do the declaration, we should remember that they are going to be paid too. At the same time, when they get paid, some of them are going to make good use of it.
Let's say.
Remember here, you know, most of them don't buy fuel.
Let's assess this here. Yeah. Let's say a public official comes to office and he's paid, let's say, 1,000 cedis a month, and he stays for 2 years, and he lives to, let's say, $200 million. Would that be his salary?
And how
can you afford that sort of money? How can you afford that sort of money?
That's where you have to check. That's where you have to check. That's where you have to check. What did he do with his salary?
We have paperworks in white and black. When you invest in treasure bills, there is an evidence to show. When you invest in, let's say, agriculture, there's evidence of it to show. So unless you are telling me you are opening a different account elsewhere, how come you are opening different account elsewhere?
There are people saying that the Asset Declaration Act is not really achieving its purpose. Because if you want to declare your asset as a public official, you go to the Auditor General, you take a form, you fill it, and you seal it. How then does it become asset declaration. It's more like you're concealing your assets.
It's true.
So it's not really achieving it.
That's where I think the government must be up and doing on that, because at the end of the day, filling it and concealing it, at the end of the day, putting it somewhere, unless maybe you are telling me you are doing it for different purposes altogether. Because this is a situation whereby everything is now going virtually. I can go on the net, access even President Trump's infos. Okay, I can easily have access to it.
Because Australia's public assets thing, it's online.
It's online. You can easily have it online. And since we say we are declaring it for the public, and it must be on my fingertips, in my domain, so that when I need any personal information, I can get access to it and have it. So when you go wrong, I can easily take you to court.
Remember, you are not telling me that we should do it online. You understand? But
so if I can go online and know that another came with this money.
Yes. So declaring it at the same time sealing it is for we've been doing it for long. You understand? And it's there. So at any time they can go for it. But now that you are bringing a view of bringing it online.
No, but in my view, this is not a big deal. This is not a big deal, because if you look at the advanced world, we are in the 21st century now.
Of course.
So I don't believe that in this modern Ghana, someone would have a negative mindset about this asset declaration. They are supposed to be held accountable for whatever, even a dime or pin in it, so that the young generation that are coming up to will also put it up. They will emulate that life.
How many countries is just online right now?
Australia has their
and when?
I know Australia.
And Australia are advanced country. And we are not coming up.
We are middle income.
We are developing.
He said we are not developing. We are not developing. He said we are not developing. So before we emulate them, it take time.
I know where it's coming from. You know, Ghanaians have this notion, okay? I'm secretly a billionaire. I don't want people to know I have this sort of money, because I'm afraid of thieves. I'm afraid of family begging me here and there. Ghanaians, that's our attitude. More or less like the Nigerians who like to show off their assets. You know, that's where I'm having problems with Ghanaians, okay? But in this case, let's remember, it's my money, it's your money, the taxpayers' money. You are coming to take assets of it. So you need to at least bring it for everyone to see. I came with this money. So when I'm going,
I don't think that's advisable.
Why is it advisable?
No, why do you want to know what I came with?
So if you are coming as a public official, you know what I remember.
But you are not supposed to know what I came with.
Oh, really? I have a problem here.
And moreover, you know what hurts me most is that now there's a saying that when the fire dies, the ashes stands as a testimony to the flame. If you are a public officer who comes to dedicate your life and work for the government, by your term of office, I know for sure that maybe there will be a trademark, there will be something that will emulate or put it in mark that, okay, Mr. Mohammed came into power, so in his term, he was able to manage from this era. Let's say in 1 year we have been able to mobilize such an amount of money, which is $1 million or even 1,000 Ghana cedis. So from there we get to see that all the public officials will be held accountable, and for that matter too, they work diligently towards their work.
I know the Asset Declaration Act is more like to fight corruption, and last year the corruption perception index Ghana dropped further. Do you think we are really winning the fight against corruption?
I see some spark of hope in this current government. He's doing his own. Bringing infusion of the prosecutor's office, I think is something laudable. Even the international community are there praising it for that stats, because it's not easy. Some office to fight, specifically to fight this canker about corruption, I think is a good step when this current government is concerned. But I think there's more room for improvement.
Well, I think we are, but then corruption is everywhere, whether government or private, is everywhere. So we will, but it will keep long. It's going to take time, but we'll surely get there.
But let's all be realistic. If you put me as a public, position, master, I will try and learn. Everybody wants to do that.
No, the problem
I don't know why you want to be like.
The problem here is that if you are not willing to corrupt, it is own people, they will end up bringing you something in the form of package.
Yes.
That's why in Ghana we don't call it corruption. We call it package.
Just remember, you watching home can partake in this discussion. What is it? We talked about the Asset Declaration Act. What you make of it, just log on to our social media platforms. On Facebook as News on TV3 and on Twitter as a News TV3. Our WhatsApp line is always available at 050-823-528. Just go there and drop your comments, and we're always ready to read them and share them with the rest of the world.
What are we talking about today?
Okay, today I want to talk about the state of the economy. Yeah.
State of the economy. All right, peeps. So join him and I on this show, The Rant, a new day.
Daily Rant.
Daily Rant. I got it right. Daily Rant, New Day. Okay. On TVC3.
Yeah, TV3.
Yeah. On TV3. You are not nice. On TV3. Join us on this show, Daily Rant, New Day on TV3.
Yeah.
We rock.
Yeah.
Right.
The Times says high tension in Bimbilla as gunman kills woman, injures girl. That's the front page story. And senior high school swine flu pandemic under control at Kumaka, also on the front page of The Times. The NewDay says Akufo-Addo's Xmas package to ministers. A reshuffle on 25th December. That's on the NewDay newspaper. The story says appointees assessment from ready as palpitations set in. Photographs of some ministers, monitoring and evaluation minister Antonio Koto say, national security, defense, chief of staff, trade and industry, and the interior, all of them. There are photographs here. The Heritage says, don't dare us. Mine workers warn Goldfields storm parliament today. The statesman stop the unproductive act. Senior minister cautions public servants. Ghana to have first vaccine factory in Africa. And the Today newspaper, one killed in Bimbilla shooting. The story here. The Finder, the business Finder, pharmaceutical 660 megawatts deals sealed as German investors show confidence in economy. And Free Zones Board targets for $5.4 billion exports in 2018. Those are some of the papers I have with me this morning. We'll take a look at some of them. My guest this morning to do the talking is a member of parliament for the Busa South constituency, a member of the NDC, Dr. Clement Apak. Good morning.
Good morning, Brett.
We are doing great.
By the grace of God, I'm well, courtesy of his abundant mercies.
Right.
And his ability to overlook our shortcomings as creatures of his creation. So I can't complain. I continue to do my best for the people of Busa South. You have forgotten.
I've forgotten once again. Yes, I've forgotten once again.
You say Solua.
Solua. Okay.
Soluna.
I'll pick it up gradually.
Very well.
I'll pick it up. I'm grateful for your time with us this morning.
It's always a pleasure.
Right. We're waiting for the second vice chair of the NPP Eastern Region, Nana Fredua Mufuriata. He may be joining us very soon. But let's begin the day. The Daily Graphic has a story. Cop 3 others arrested for armed robbery. A chilling story there. 4 suspected armed robbers, including a policeman, have been busted after the attack and robbed a supermarket at Nungwa in Accra last Tuesday night. They were told that while 3 of the alleged robbers were arrested at the police snap checkpoint in the abattoir area, the policeman identified as Corporal Raymond Amegashi of the Tema Police Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, that's the SWAT, was arrested at Chopoli Barrier when he was on his way to the Volta region. At the time of his arrest, he was in a pair of police trousers and boots and a civilian shirt. He later led the police to retrieve 2 AK-47 assault rifles and some of the cash stolen from the Asante supermarket. 3 other suspects have been identified by police as Ibrahim Ayerebo, Bright Dokanu, and Stanley Akoli. We're told that an amount of 45,000 cedis was retrieved from the suspects. Some rifles were also taken from the scene of the robbery. We saw the story on TV3 to my second guest, Nana Frederick Ajimofori, as the second vice chair of the NPP. Good morning.
I wanted to use the language. I forgot already. Solua.
Oh, okay.
Then he responds, Soluna.
Okay.
Yeah, right. You didn't practice what I just
said.
No,
I will.
I gave him the offer. Solua. See, he still didn't take it.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, one more time, Solua.
Yeah.
You say Soluna.
Soluna.
There you go.
Very well.
I'm trying to make up for my late.
It's a process. I see. It's a smart
All right. Okay.
Politely introducing yourself.
Let's begin the day with this story on the Daily Graphic. Dr. Park, particularly when we find officers who are supposed to protect us engaged in this, really, it is worrying. Very, very worrying, I guess.
Yes, Bright. Good morning again to you. Good morning to my colleague, Nana Fredua. Good morning to our viewers. It's a very sobering and shocking story for obvious reasons. I mean, we all know the role that cops are supposed to play. They are supposed to be the service providers, and as far as our immediate security needs are concerned. And so when you have stories of this nature, clearly indicating, and in this case, somebody who has been trained with the taxpayers' money and who is being deployed to offer protection to the good people of this country, to enhance their ability to make their contributions to themselves, to their families, and to their nation, rather leading a group to do the opposite. It is cause for worry and to be alarmed about. But you see, we hear this time and again, and I want us to begin looking at what measures can be put in place to ensure that elements who are prone to criminality in the first place are not recruited into the security services. And that is why in other jurisdictions, background checks are always very important. When you apply, for example, to join the U.S. Army or even the Federal Police Force, either in New York or California, a thorough background check is conducted. Where you come from, the elementary school you attended, the high school you attended, if you went to a university, your neighborhood, your behavior, your attitude, where you worked even before you were applying to join the service, all of these are looked at and considered to make sure that you don't end up recruiting people who will turn around to use the knowledge, the skill, and the talent, and even the resources that the state is providing to them to engage in these kinds of acts. And as you read, apparently this is a cop who had access to weapons.
Right.
And the way the story has been couched, it looks as though, he belonged to a group in the police service that has a reputation for being an elite group capable of dealing with matters of crime. And yet you have him being the one leading a gang of criminals. So I think we need to certainly call attention of the police hierarchy to these occurrences and to call for them to begin the processes of scrutinizing applicants to the detail to make sure that we don't end up empowering criminals to cheat, to steal, and to make our lives unbearable. Because this is simply despicable, and I think this is a wake-up call. But I think we have to get to the bottom of this issue. Background checks must become very, very important as a prerequisite, not just the academic qualifications. We must begin looking at background checks of all persons we recruit into our security agencies.
Service. Yeah. But I mean, the person is recruited, the checks are done, and then in the course of his work, he becomes one of the bad nuts. That could be a possibility.
But yes, but there are also reviews. There has to be a mechanism for reviews. So we could say that maybe after you pass out, perhaps every 2 to 3 years, there has to be a review to ensure that at least, these people that we entrust our destiny upon, in as far as our security needs are concerned, continue on the track that is supposed to benefit us and not to harm us. So it is quite possible. We can look at other jurisdictions for best practices. I mean, this is not rocket science. It's not going to be the first time. And we can learn from other jurisdictions and then try to use that knowledge to complement the good things that we are doing. I mean, certainly we cannot say that because of this particular incident or perhaps a few bad nuts, you know, who rear their ugly hairs now and then, we should use that as a basis to condemn, you know, our security agencies and the police service. By and large, they are doing what they are supposed to do. Once in a while, we would all have cause to complain that perhaps they may have fallen short in one way or the other. And sometimes we have these kinds of very unfortunate incidents associated with police personnel. But by and large, we know that they are doing their best. And we need to give them the needed support. Right. But the citizens also have a role to play by holding them accountable and also even making sure that even when we have reason to suspect that a serving police or military officer is engaging in behavior that is contrary to what they have been trained to do, we bring that to the attention of the powers that be for these matters to be addressed.
Grateful. Nana, yes. How do we weed out these bad ones from the police service?
Well, if I try to answer that without a caveat, it would appear as though I'm an expert at this with regard to the police and their work. And so I must first say that I'm not an expert at determining how police matters are managed on that level, where one can understand how the system works 100%, such that you're able to offer or proffer solutions of this nature. But you have the realities on the ground. First of all, I think that we must recognize that we have a very good police service in terms of training. For decades on end, we've produced some very serious people. The IGPs, Mr. Mane, Mr. Che, we've produced serious IGPs who, for want, the only shortcomings they encountered were not their doing. They were the doings of either the political system or the economy, and therefore they couldn't take care of certain things. But otherwise, as individual people who knew what the job was about, we've had serious people to the point of being able to appoint some of them as IGPs. That's something to take home. Then you have other accolades for the police, CID. I mean, the current IGP, for example, when he served abroad, I mean, even when he was leaving, apparently they didn't want him to leave. You know, we've had a whole host of other officers who've gone abroad and served on missions and what have you, and served well. So it cannot be that our system is necessarily the problem. It's probably our sociology, you know, and then we can get bad nuts in every system, and so we cannot imagine that it won't happen. It's the preventive measure, which is eventually what you're asking about. And that one also, I'd side with the Honorable Apak and say that I think that we on the civilian side must play a role, even the media. I keep asking this question, particularly to do with law and order issues. How many of us recall that we had a police officer come and visit us in our primary schools to make themselves friendly in terms of the work that they do? How many even saw them in the secondary schools? Even if you went up to the university level, how many people really get to appreciate that it's an opportunity to serve? After you've finished school, you can serve in the police service as a graduate. It's a handful of people who ever get to understand that. We all gradually have been educated without understanding the purpose of law and order in its practical form, such that you have a police officer, male and female, come to your school to educate you on what the police do. It's the system, it's not the police's fault. Those are shortcomings. The citizenry must understand that and want that. Teachers, educators, parents, everybody must want those things to prepare the children. I recall a small incident where a little nephew of mine out in one of the villages, you know, well, he wasn't little at the time, he was 15. And suddenly he started showing signs of not wanting to continue school. And his father was worried, tried everything, and then invited me to talk to the young man. When it got to probing him on what's going on and what he wants to do, he says he wants to be a policeman. I said, why? You think police people don't get educated? And you know, without answering yes or no, he apparently thought so. Because he had a negative mentality about police. Stand by the roadside, stop the cars, whatever goes on, the car takes off. That kind of stuff. It's a negative perception that's embedded in a young mind. So, and I blame it not on the police per se. It's on all of us, because we really don't do a lot to fix that image for both sides. And so I think that, like I said, I'm not an expert, so to prefer a direct solution would be pretentious on my part. But at least, if we keep these types of factors in mind, maybe when the police, and I know that the police are going through a certain process right now, they call transformation, and I believe that that's supposed to change or effect a more positive image than they have now about how they work and who they are and all that. And it will seep into the society as well.
I'm grateful. Let's jump to the Today newspaper. A story on page 13. Nitiwo clears air on Mahama military land comment. Defense Minister Dominic Nitiwo says a statement he made about former President John Mahama's property sited close to Burma camp was an advice to the ex-president to vacate the military territory. According to him, the continuous stay of the former president in a house he acquired from an estate developer could give a further impetus for people to continue to encroach on the military property. The story says that at a news conference recently, the defense minister fumed over what he described as the indiscriminate sale of military lands by public officers in collusion with officers of the Lands Commission. The defense minister named ex-president Mahama, whom he accused of being a beneficiary of the military lands sold indiscriminately in the last couple of days. But the office of the former president reacted, describing the comment as reckless. Now, the Heritage also has a story related to this. Let me quickly type that one into what I have. It's a story about from the owners of a land. Yes, the story captured on page 9 on the Heritage says that the owners of the land, the East Dadekotopon Development Trust, has disputed a claim by the defense minister that ex-president Mahama is occupying a military land. According to Mr. Odoyemo, the ministry the military had rather encroached on their lands and indicated that the military would be wrong to lay claim to the said land, saying the land is pure and simple in the trust's title certificate. That's the story so far. But the defense minister is suggesting that what he meant was not to say that the former president had encroached on the military land, but he said that his stay there could give impetus for people to continue to encroach on the military property. Dr. Park, if you heard the defense minister's press conference and what he's saying now, would you agree that that is what he meant?
Certainly not. I think that, in all honesty, the defense minister got it wrong. Indeed, the former president's office came out with a statement to contest his decision. And I am glad that you've also read information coming from the owners of the land. So, factually, the defense minister got it wrong. And what he ought to have done would have been to apologize for essentially impugning the image and integrity of the former commander-in-chief. I mean, the implication of what he said, I think, is obvious for all of us to see. So rather than beating about the bush and trying to rationalize, what he said, which is at variance with what you read in terms of the content of the Meet the Press, that portion of it, vis-a-vis his now revisionist interpretation, you can see that these two are clearly at variance. And you see, his position is a very sensitive one for obvious reasons.
Right.
So somebody who occupies that position, it will be good for him to stay away from controversy as much as possible and not make statements that are not factually based. You remember that in that same Meet the Press, he didn't just mention and indeed sought to give an order to the former president, that is my interpretation, to vacate where he was because he had claimed that the former president's property was on military land. But he also then went on to make a claim about the work attitude of the workers of the Gihok shoe factory. And you know, they've also come out to hold a press conference essentially telling the minister that he has peddled untruths. So, you know, when you have a defense minister making statements of this nature, which are turning out not to be factual, it creates some reasonable level of worry. As it is, we have a lot of serious challenges in this country. And I would want to hope that he will focus his attention in addressing his portfolio and, you know, not dabble in political propaganda. Look, the NPP has won power. They have been in government since January 7th, 2017. Ghana has challenges. They should focus on fixing what they said was wrong with this nation, for which reason the good people of Ghana gave them the mandate. And stop these attempts to constantly try and create diversionary tactics simply because they are now in the kitchen and they are noticing that the temperature is way above and beyond 30 degrees Celsius. So my candid opinion is that the defense minister owes the former president an unqualified and indeed a heartfelt apology for making the claims and allegations that he made against the former president.
Nana, should Mr. Nitiwul apologize to the former president for claims that the owners of the land say are not true?
Well, he would have to apologize if what he says he said has been proven wrong. I'm very, very, very sure and suspicious that the Honorable Apak has no clue about what Mr. Nitiwul said. He hasn't listened to the tape. He hasn't. He's relying on information given to him, hearsay and all that, and he's making the comments, and that's what a lot of people are doing.
But it is reported.
I'm saying, have you listened in a sensitive matter of this nature, where you recognize that the Minister for Defense's portfolio is so sensitive that he must not make any flippant comments and must stick to certain interests? And then you sit on there and not know exactly what he said and make a judgment.
I don't have to know. The owners of the land have come out clearly.
They themselves were misplaced in their comment. That is the point.
The owners of the land?
I am telling you that yes, because if you notice, the Honorable Defense Minister's statement was not about ownership, and therefore he wasn't challenging ownership. And so what were these so-called owners claiming?
The Honorable Minister said that the land belonged to the military.
He did not say so. Go and listen to the tape. He did not. He said that they have an interest in the land, and that because Mr. Mahama was former president, and therefore the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he was the president and therefore commander-in-chief of the armed forces, knew the sensitivities of that neighborhood, including the interests of the army. Now, if you, as commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, understand that the army has an interest in this territory, you don't do anything during or after your tenure in office. That's the principle that Mr. Nitiwul was pushing. He didn't change his mouth. You notice I said mouth, not mouth. He didn't change it. What he said was that he is advising. And listen to the tape. Nothing he said has changed. He was saying that Mr. Mahama's position on that in that territory was not good in terms of principle because of who he was as a former president, therefore as a one-time president, former same thing. Understanding the circumstances of the army. Now here's the truth, and what Dr. Apak refuses to recognize. The fact is that when somebody like Mr. Dominic Nitiwul, who has been in parliament for not less than 4 terms, been through, he knows what it's like to be a non-parliamentarian. He knows what it's like to be a parliamentarian. He knows what it's like to lose your seat and come back into civilian, quote-unquote, systems, and then come back into office, and then be in opposition, and then come into government. And you think that he'll be flippant?
But obviously he has.
You are sustaining your flippancy, because I've told you just now that you have not listened to the tape and you are doing what you are doing. I'm saying we should be very clear.
Did the minister say the land belonged to the military?
He did not.
He did not say.
Yes, and he's been emphatic about. In fact, what I heard him say, and I'm speaking from his utterances, the media called him, Joy FM, I believe it was. They played his tape to him, and what he had said before they played the tape fit exactly with what he said. So he wasn't caught hanging. And then he went ahead to explain, and they asked him the question, what were you talking about? He said, no, I was not talking about the ownership, and therefore the interference of the so-called owners. And then he even goes ahead to explain why there's an interest from the army. They said the army has expressed interest in that territory. They were in court, they lost the case, but they have an interest in that territory. There's still a case in court on that matter between two factions. I believe one of them is the one that's the foundation. They have come out to insist that it's their territory, and they're still in court apparently. So on what basis would the minister therefore now claim that the army owns the land? The army, the minister said it was clear. So you see, when there's a show, let me
outburst was an advice
to who?
To the ex-president.
Mr. Nittle's, yes, sorry, yes.
It was an advice.
Yes, it was. It was
but
very
how
clear.
do you advise somebody
very clear and stated?
Would it have been better if he had perhaps gone to the office of the former president instead of?
I don't think so. I found it prudent.
Because
I found nothing wrong with. I heard this same question was posed
in the media.
This same question. What would
in that manner? If you listen to the tone,
what would the value be?
Then if you advise him,
I don't say that.
What would the value be?
Advising somebody indoors and advising somebody in public.
If you also, difference. Also, if you didn't take a presumptuous position and listen to me, you'd recognize that when I raise a question of this nature, I must justify it. I'm on national TV. I'm not supposed to just speak. I have to have regard for the listeners, if for nothing at all. So I'm saying, what would the value be if we know who we're dealing with? The reality is that we've had circumstances where Mr. Mahama was living in the residency of the vice president. When it was time to go, he said that he wanted to stay there. Or we've forgotten.
You want to resurrect that discussion?
Is it a want or I'm doing it?
Very well.
Thank you. Now, on that particular score, we heard what happened. Personally, I think that it's a quiet and personal matter and must be raised. But in the situation of Mr. Nitiwo, who's protecting the army, his portfolio, and must come out, maybe he considers it that this is the background. Then there's also the reality of pressure. You must put pressure on the system. If Mr. Mahama recognizes this pressure-wise, he should act. What is this? Why do we want to do soft things? Why?
He should act how?
If it were hawkers on the street, we'd do Abaye and sack all of them. And take their property.
The land have told you clearly that doesn't belong to them.
Are we listening to the matter of principle that I raised, which is what the minister is talking about?
Yes, but if the minister had an interest,
as a matter of principle, when you know that the army who you led, he was the leader of the army, and who you must still have an interest in because you are former president, and former president has a status in this country. A high-level status in this country. It comes with a certain responsibility. Just as when you're in office, you must be very careful of what you do. When you leave office, you must continue on that stead because people look at you from that angle. When the sitting president, Nana Akufo-Addo, decided to invite presidents who had people who had been presidents before, did he leave Mr. Mahama out? He called them in for advice. Did he leave Mr. Mahama? It's because of the state of... He didn't call Bright or Apak. He definitely didn't call Nana Fredia. He called those who have been president. There's a status that comes with your being there past or present. And so the politicization has come from the minister. He said he doesn't think it's politics. As for me, I like the idea that it's politics. Because we must begin to let people who get power understand that there are certain things that must be taken care of. If it had been done quietly, this matter of a responsibility will slip everybody's mind. And then the NDC will come here and talk about the NPP should focus on their work instead of doing whatever. Meanwhile, this is the NPP's work in government.
Is the defense ministry able to remove the former president?
I don't think so.
The story that they said that by 31st December.
That's not what...
the press conference said that by 31st December, all those on the land will be removed. That's what I'm asking. Is the defense ministry minister able to remove the express.
Is that the same land?
It's the same land.
Really?
Yes.
That one I didn't.
All encroaches on
that one.
land.
I didn't get that feeling, so I'll not touch that territory. I didn't get that feeling, and I don't understand that, so I won't go there. But let's get into the added politics from Dr. Park. This is connected to our capacity to govern. This one, compared to the NDC, you've been sacked from office. You were sacked, though. You were not just voted out. You were sacked by the people of Ghana. Typically, you were campaigning with the same candidate for a second term because you can. That's what the Constitution. So when you don't get it, the implication is that they sacked you and brought in a new officer. And you're telling me what? And then in the year, you have sat in opposition and tried to deny Ghanaian children an education.
No,
by,
that's not
by
true.
your position against free SHS.
You know it is not true.
You have told us that, why have we paid teachers their allowances? Because when you were in office, you were chopping that money as a government. You were not using the money properly. So why? How come Akufo-Addo's government has found that money? I'm saying, when I say chop, you know what I mean. I'm not saying as individuals. I said you as a government. Oh, I can't say that you are. I cannot say that you. I cannot sit here and say you. I cannot. I said that as government.
Let's elevate the discourse. Nobody has chopped.
This is an elevated discourse. Thanks to you. It is elevated. Okay, we've lowered it to the standard you took it to, because you chose to deal. You chose to deal with this matter on that level. Instead of dealing with this matter on this truth level, you chose to deal with it on perpetuating things like the government doesn't know what it's doing and all that. Are you serious? We're talking about when teachers and nurses' allowances are being restored so that they have a certain freedom to become who they want to be, generate skills.
Yes, but you have also,
and you are telling us that it doesn't work.
Quota system, which you said you wouldn't do.
All of that. If we haven't done all in a year, it doesn't mean. Well, you're going to take the 3 years away from us. Are you going to take the 3 years away from us? It is your failings. It is your failings in office. It's why the hurried president is even having to temper his speed. That's the point. It is your shortcoming in office which got you sacked.
The president is in a hurry.
But he has said it. Why should I? And
we are waiting to see.
Look, I'm looking forward to the day when the press, the media, will take a list from January 8th, 2013, to January 6th, 2017, and let us compare notes. Of course, they will tell you that because they were in court, they went to sleep. They didn't work, and yet they were taking salaries. And so that one is all part of the thing. Dr. Park, every morning he went to Jubilee House and slept because he couldn't work because we were in court.
It's not Jubilee
you
House.
Want to call it that? Me too, I call it Jubilee House.
So Nana,
you were busy reverting names instead of working.
What indeed has Mr. Nitool achieved with this?
Yes.
Well, if we think that this is a matter worth discussing, even if from the negative perspective, in my opinion, it has brought to the fore the need for leaders to recognize that when you take up a responsibility, it's not your personal interest that matters first. That's what this is. Because if Mr. Mahama took out his personal interest and recognized that that responsibility as president and therefore former president requires that he must support the army today, can invite him to help them, even on image building, on all matters, even in this land negotiation. Why? If they were in a crux situation where they needed support from somebody of influence like him, and in spite of the fact that I'm taking him on this, I cannot dare suppose that he's not influential. He's former president, for crying out loud. So we must respect that. What if the army wanted him to come and support them on a negotiation like that? We must be careful of these things.
But and you,
the media.
I'm wondering why you're still insisting that the land belongs to the military when a court has ruled that that land doesn't belong to the military.
The military has an interest.
Yes, but the court says it doesn't belong to
you. But the military, so
the military is above the law. Is that what you're saying?
What does having an interest mean?
Look,
it means you are above the law.
A court has ruled that way.
I'm saying
it is not for you.
I'm saying
you are saying they still have an interest.
I'm saying, Bright. Okay, that's not a good example. I was going to test your skills as a rapper. I was going to. Okay, let me just say for laughter's sake. I was going to say that's Bright. So I hope your wife isn't listening. That one woman you chased, and she said no. Did you stop immediately? She said no. You kept going back and trying to try.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Right. The army has an interest in the land.
So they'll pursue it.
Every player on their side should stay on their side on this matter of governance. We know the value of the army to the country. And so when you're a former president, former advisor at the presidency and all that, you're supposed to keep that in perspective. I'm not saying be biased for one or again, but at least be circumspect in your position on these matters, because it's a matter of national interest.
I'm grateful.
But the point is that the president has done nothing wrong.
Let me see the daily graphic.
And the owners of the land have certainly...
It's a matter of perspective.
They have vindicated the president. And indeed, from what we hear, there are even some people in the current government who also have properties in that area. The truth is that Nitiwo was reckless in
You just had to have the last say of that. Is that it?
The former president.
Is that the case?
For no wrong done. And he needs
he just had to
render an unqualified
apology. Now here's my question.
To the commander-in-chief.
Here's my question to you. Here's my question to you. Have you listened to the tape?
I don't have to listen to the tape.
Have you listened to the tape?
He himself.
Have you listened to the tape?
See the way he has tried to refine his original statement.
Dr. Apak, have you listened to the tape?
You are a communicator.
Dr. Apak, have you listened to the tape?
I don't have to listen to the tape.
That's not the answer to the question.
I have read the content of the tape.
Have you listened to the tape?
I have read the content of the tape.
Where?
I have seen the fact that
Dr. Apak, have you listened to the tape?
At the event is different from his recent revisionist interpretation.
Dr. Apak, have you listened to
all right, I'm grateful. Daily Graphic this morning says, minority chides government over move to sack Dr. Isiama. The minority in parliament has criticized the government's purported decision to pay off the second deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama. It said the intended removal of Dr. Isiama coming on the heels of the possible resignation of the immediate past governor, Dr. Nashiru Isahaku, would undermine the independence of the Bank of Ghana and send wrong signals to the International Monetary Fund and the international business community. Now, the minority leader, the chief whip, the ranking member on Foreign Affairs Committee, all of them spoke to the Daily Graphic or spoke to the issue. And the story also talks about the financial liabilities with the removal of Dr. Isiama. We're told by the paper that Dr. Isahaku, who was forced to resign, had retired on his salary. It said if Dr. Isiama also retired on his salary, the country would be saddled with paying the salaries of a former governor and a former deputy governor. That's a story in the Daily Graphic. Nana, should we be worried about, or how worried should we be that the kind of signal it was sent to the IMF and other international investors, isn't that what we need, particularly at this time when we're trying to rebuild?
Well, from that angle of the question, and I'd like to also again put a caveat on my statements, which is that one has to be very sensitive to Dr. Isiama. I don't have details about whether he's being asked to step down, whether he's chosen to step down. I heard a news item that said that a rumor that he was being pushed. His lawyer spoke. His lawyer was Mr. Victor Adaud, yes. Said that it was not the case. And so I don't know where all of this is coming from. So now, having said that, and therefore recognizing the sensitivities and the due respect to Dr. Isiama, the matter which you raise is one about the international community. This assumes that Dr. Isiama's influence from Ghana on the international community is such that without him, Ghana will stop working.
The Bank of Ghana, not Dr. Isiama.
I'm saying, but the Bank of Ghana has a governor. Yes. If it is true that Dr. Isiama, let's put it this way, if it is true that the deputy governor is going to be replaced with another deputy governor, there will be a deputy governor.
Right.
Most likely as credible as the one who would be leaving. So, and the International Monetary Fund or any of these other bodies, they look at that. Is that what is done? It is not the case.
The issue is on what they will make of the organization. That is it one that have the people who are running it changing? Are they change in government?
I think that we also
policy credibility.
Yeah, we also assume
if we're pursuing a policy and we know that the next government will change the people through who were running the policy, then we might not as well trust in the institution, because you deal with people in the next 4 years, they have gone, and so that policy is truncated somewhere.
Well,
that's the argument.
Well, it's a good theory. Is it practical? Is it practical? It's a good theory. Is it practical? And the issues, in my opinion, are it's about government policy, state policy, and how it's being implemented. It's not about person policy or one institution policy alone. It's about governance policies, state policies. And so is it true that this is how people would feel? Or this is how these institutions would feel? When they act with us, do they act with us based on the friendships they establish with the individuals? Or they act based on the fact that they know that Ghana cannot run away. The Bank of Ghana cannot run away. The straightforward things that the systems do. And then there's also a mention about the pressure on the purse of the public, the public purse, because you have 2 people going away. Is that truly a concern?
We're paying 2 people.
You see, I'm not one
for not doing anything.
Oh, is that true? They're not doing anything. The arrangement is made because of what they've done. Now suddenly they're not doing anything. It should never come up.
If you have retired, you have asked them to go home.
Yes, but we're talking about when they retire, what they take home. And that means because they're not doing anything, we shouldn't pay that money.
No, not pay, but we're saying that then it means that you're paying money for
because of
no work.
It's because of their standards is why we've agreed to pay that money.
Right.
Yeah, so that one does not.
So why wouldn't you allow them to work then?
And I'm saying, in those instances, in the case of the governor, did he say that he was forced out of office? I don't understand why people want to do their politics.
So he resigned.
I'm saying, did he say it? If he didn't say it, then it means that there was, well, if either he resigned or there was some mutual understanding.
If he resigned, would we be paying him?
Is that how the system works? I don't know. These details I don't have. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend. But I'm saying that, do we have any proof that the former governor was forced out of office?
The proof in the Daily Graphic story is that we're paying him even though...
Here's another question, Bright.
And the question is, if he resigned...
The fallacy of this whole
to pay him
proposal from the minority, when you remember Mr. Samu Kujeto's case in court? You remember that one?
Right.
What was that? You had a very stable governance system going for the Bank of Ghana. You come into office and then you want people to step down. IMF at that time, they didn't have that knowledge that today they seem to be imposed with. I mean, why? Let's deal with our truths. I'm saying, first of all, I don't have it. If you do, please let me know that there's pressure on somebody to leave his position. Okay. Secondly, if it were the case, in the scheme of things, and is there proof that it will affect all these international bodies? In the times that the Minister for Finance, the senior minister, and all those in the economic management team have gone to meet these bodies, or those bodies have come, has it ever been a case where part of the conditions of their cooperation with government is that don't remove X, Y, and Z? If you do, we won't work with you. It doesn't happen. There should be a focus on what is happening that's possible. If, for any reason, there's something very untoward about something, I have no problem with anybody raising it, whether it's even people on the government side, on the political party side of the government, or in opposition. Like that one, because that individual they'll be fighting for is Ghanaian, and the right things must be done. A political decision, assuming that this is true, that there's pressure, a political decision that does not hurt our economy, but if anything at all boosts our economy, or gives a political opportunity for freedom to govern better or whatever, that one is not a bad idea.
You're not worried about the independence of the Bank of Ghana if it is threatened?
That's a good question. In that instance, if this is the case, and that's why I just said the last part of my statement, if there is a situation where it is threatened by that level of personalization, and I don't consider that if this is the case, if the case we're talking about is the case, it's not on such a personal level, I don't see that. But if it is on that level, that's untoward, because it ultimately does not help the country, then of course I'd be bothered. The independence of the bank is crucial, it's very crucial. So I doubt that. But listen, in our reality about that independence, are we not the same political bodies that make the appointments to the bank on that hierarchical level? And so, you know, Yeah. You can go back and forth. Let's deal with our truth.
Okay.
Our truth is that, first of all, I haven't heard that the gentleman is being pressured out.
Right.
Yes. Secondly, if he's being asked to do so, and it is not on an extreme personal level that undermines, you know what I'm saying, affects the governance of the bank, I don't see anything there. More importantly, really, the minority should look for work to do. They should look for work to do. There's plenty of work to do.
Okay. All right. Grateful. Dr. Park, so Nana thinks, well, issues about the confidence of the international investors and the IMF because of removal of persons, isn't anything that should...
Can I just pass this through quickly?
Just quickly. About.
Do you know the statement that President Akufo-Addo made to President Macron? You know, the one that's hit YouTube. You know that it's got 1.7 million viewers across the world. And that was an economic statement. It was a social statement. It was a political statement.
So
it's just a passing comment. It intends to.
Okay.
Is that going to solve
it intends to. It intends to, because it gives people... In France, they discussed Nana Akufo-Addo for over a week.
Yes, they are also discussing the fact that he says, you know...
You see, you're stuttering on what you're saying. You know, answer his question. All right, answer his question.
So,
yes.
So the minority certainly has a reason why they think the government is behind this and asking government to stop it.
We do.
Okay.
I mean, as you read out, you can see that our leader, the Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, has spoken. Indeed, the minority chief whip has also spoken. And my ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Honorable Okuja Ablako, has also spoken. You see, right, we are expressing this concern based on information also available to us. I mean, whether we like it or not, we live in a system that is interconnected. So when there are moves being made in different parts of that system, others not in that system but a sister institution can also get to hear what is going on. And the attention we are drawing is based on what we have seen in the last 11.5 months, where people appointed to hold positions that should guarantee them tenure of office are being essentially hounded, coerced, either covertly or overtly, to leave office. It is clear. I mean, we can cite specific examples, and we truly believe that the governor himself did not leave on his own volition. And his second deputy, I believe, we hear that the moves are being made to try and get him to resign. We know about the famous case of the director of the Ridge Hospital, Dr. Anaba, who actually has gone to court to seek redress. Many others. We can cite several examples.
Did he not lose the case?
We can cite several examples.
The case is still in court.
Really?
Yes, it is in court.
I thought he lost.
So, look, to be honest, the perception that we are getting based on these pieces of evidence that I have adduced and the pronouncements coming from well-recognized leading members of the NPP is that there is a deliberate policy to politically cleanse anyone that they believe was appointed by our government. And that does not augur well for institutional memory and continuity, particularly to do with the central bank. Look, right, Nana can decide to, if you like, undervalue the implications of such a move. But pronouncements from people, actions of leadership can lead to the plummeting of markets. It happens. So when we are calling and cautioning that this attempt to try and cleanse almost every public institution of any person perceived to be a sympathizer of the NDC or to have been appointed by the NDC can affect us negatively, we have reasonable cause to call that to attention. Because look, if the bank, the central bank, is going to lose this many high-ranking officers in such a short time, it clearly indicates that the institution in itself is not stable. If new people come in, they now have to learn the ropes, they have to be oriented, they have to know how the system works and all of that, which is a total waste of time and resources. And yet you are packaging fantastic and very mouth-watering, lucrative packages as a bait to try and get people to leave when you can let them dispense their responsibilities and to leave when the prescribed tenure of office elapses. What is wrong with that? So we are merely calling attention to the fact that this is becoming one too many. And we can cite several examples of different heads of institutions that should have survived the change in the political leadership of this country. And they have not. So what type of democracy, what type of system are we building? Are we saying that if and when there's a change in government, all of the other heads of institutions in the public and civil service, we must cleanse them simply because we feel that they were appointed by the predecessor or the successive government? Is that the type of democracy that we want to build? So I think that the minority, we are right in calling attention to the fact that the move being made to cause Dr. Siama to resign certainly will not augur well for the stability of the central bank and its image in the eyes of the international community.
Right. Right. There was a question I expected you to ask Dr. Park.
Are you the host?
He talks about, no, that's why I'm throwing it back to him. He talks about political cleansing. Does he talk from an honest position because he wasn't in the country at the time? And if he said he wasn't, we'd know he wasn't telling us the truth. When somebody like Professor Atefa was removed from national identification authority.
Are you suggesting that you're doing same? Is that what you
Let me ask the question and then I'll tell you my position on it. It's a very good question.
Are you suggesting that you are doing same because it was done during
I'm about to respond to that question.
Is that what
I've asked you that question. Now, how come you didn't pose it to him? Because you had an example as the media, as the host.
I don't want us to go back to the past.
No, it is about saying that
it's about a matter of principle. Is it because Mr. Atefa was removed that our effort to remove Dr.
It is a matter of principle. When Professor Bills told us that he has to have a team he can work with, you must have remembered Dr. Park, who was in the country at the time.
Nana, is that why
then the second question is that
is being removed?
He said that you should bring new people. Let me tell you my position. I believe that decision makers should be moved when a new political system, Nana Fidua, I believe that those in decision-making positions should tally with those in government so that the policies can be implemented. There's nothing to shy from.
You are not worried
about
it.
But there is no reason to suggest that
they also believe so. So Nana, it is a double standard.
Nana,
when you come and sit here and tell us what you are telling us, Dr. Park, it is a double standard. You are beneficiary of that same policy.
That such persons with institutional memory should just be taken off because a new government
I'm saying that it is a political situation. He knows that.
You know that. It can be changed.
What do you?
The NPP promised.
You change it. No, you change it.
The NPP promised.
Are you listening? You change it.
The NPP promised.
You change it when it is relevant to what you are doing.
It is not relevant to stop removing people from office because they don't hold party.
No, I'm saying that decision makers should always be looked at in any takeover.
I see.
Yes, I think so.
So essentially, he is confirming the fears that the minority is
government.
That fear
the next government that comes to power can remove all persons.
If it has the power to do so,
it should go ahead.
And if it finds it prudent, decision makers,
it should go ahead.
When people at the bottom, and the middle management positions are being shifted up, I have a problem with that.
Okay.
But decision makers, I think that if you are bringing in people who will meet the policies that you are about, and then he talks about which governor has been brought from somewhere that was not fit to become governor in this country. What are we talking about?
I didn't suggest that.
Yes, you did. You said you're going to bring new people. What does new mean? What does new mean? What did you mean by new?
Nana Fidua is the second vice chair of the NPP Eastern Region. Now we're grateful for your Thursday morning. Dr. Clement Apak, he is the member of Parliament.
Festival of the people, chiefs and people of Buluk is coming up. Yeah, I'm told it's the 23rd. So you should all come down.
You've given us a wrong date. Say you are told.
Yes, yeah.
He's a member of Parliament for the Blue South constituency. Sure, you sent in your comment. We'll try and read them when we turn. Stay with us.
Come and do the war dance. You know, you need it.
I need it.
Well, so you heard that song there from Ebony. She's talking a bit about some of the things girls or women go through, and indeed it's real. Sexual harassment is a big issue, and in particular light when we're in the festive season or rolling up into the festive season, we're bound to hear a thing or two about these issues. So we have to certainly talk about it. And speaking to it in studio with me, I have Mr. Kweku Edumata. He's a counselor, and of course Michelle McKinney-Hammond. She's also a counselor and author. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning,
and lady. Thank you. Well, so Christmas, you know, people visit a lot, and you've got uncles and aunties and daddies coming around, and we've got these young children who just huddle up to them because they really see them as uncles, but some take advantage and abuse these young ones. So sexual harassment, oftentimes when we talk about it, it seems as if it's rape, it has to be the extreme, but they're the very subtle ones that don't show, but you know, the person has the intent. So let's talk about it. I'll start with you, Kweku. Share a personal view or your thought in general about sexual harassment.
Well, thank you so much, Nam. These things, when it happens, normally the people around the family, they are the ones that more or less go into that, trying to abuse. Okay, the picture is that you are my niece, you are my nephew, get close to me, I'll buy ABC for you. So from the child's point of view, it's empty. There is no question mark as any evil. But the man or the woman knows what is really going on. So it becomes a bit difficult for the family members to really associate themselves to. So it becomes like a stink in the family. All right? So when it happens like that, then the child, herself or himself, is in deep agony in the sense that he tends to become a bit of a reward, trying to ward himself or herself out, trying to stay aloof and more or less afraid of wanting to talk. But I always say that if you're a parent, you should be able to watch the demeanor of your children. When it happens like that and they start refusing, wanting to go to uncle and auntie, it's a first mark. Why? Don't start questioning, don't start yelling. You should be able to take your time and then deduce the whole lot of things from. Yes, they'll come in a subtle way, but at the end of the day, it becomes a big picture. So we need to be very, very careful on that.
Right, but Kweku makes it sound so easy, as if it's just identifying it and telling that uncle or auntie that, no, you can't come close to my child, or this is what you've done. And so, but oftentimes, Michelle, you may have seen from your program, sometimes you host, you hear all the various stories. Sometimes the child even is attempting to tell the parent, but it's the parent who says, no, you're being naughty. Uncle can never do this. And so how does a child respond to even open up to tell a parent? Or likewise, what should the parents do in order to be open enough for their children to come and discuss these issues with them?
Well, you know, on Case Study, on my radio show on TV3, we do have some stories like this. And I think that it's very important, first of all, for parents to know up front that no one is exempt from this. So never stop to think this person couldn't do that, this person couldn't do that. Because if a person is sick, they are sick, and they usually don't show that they are sick. So the first thing is the parent needs to know that it is possible with anyone that they know. Secondly, they need to prepare their children. They need to let them know if anyone touches you here, that is not right, and if they do, you must come and tell me. You will be safe. I don't care if they tell you that they're threatening you. I will deal with that person, so that the child knows that they have a place of refuge to go to. And then when the child comes, never throw it out and say, oh, you're talking foolishness, the person could never do that. You need to take it very seriously, because this is not something that children just think up in their mind automatically. And they need to know that they're safe and they can tell their parents, so that the parents deal with it. And it's not a thing of taking it personally as a stigma against you. That person needs to be dealt with. That person needs to be reported, so that they can get help and not attack your children or someone else's child again.
Well, so also there's that issue about sexual education. How much is too much? What then should you really discuss with your children? At what point do you come and talk about sex in the home?
You see, I always say that when the child or the person in question start asking questions, start trying to, identify the so-called beauty in her or him, or trying to show a bit of masculine. That's where you start. Hey, you're a man now. Hey, you're a lady now. A, B, C, D will happen if you go A, B, C, D on this way. So you need to do what I call open terrace. Don't be too close, as if it's not of importance to you. Welcome the people and the children to your turf and discuss it. one good scene could be probably we are all reading or a story or watching TV or something, and there's a clause of that nature. We can use it as a basis, a starting point. Okay, this is how it starts. A little cozy words, and a little closeness, and a little touch, and then by the time you realize this is what is happening. So don't be too excited of yourself, but be more of alert. And then try and ward. And as Michelle said, come tell me whatever strange thing that somebody is doing to you. That will be a bit good of a start in terms of you being open. But the moment you close your door, you shut, and then you start accusing the lady or the man or the boy, it means that I will hide it for the rest of my life. Because when I do come say, you might not believe in me. Because you are supposed to be my pillar, but you couldn't be there for me. So these things are a bit important. We need to always hammer it. Whenever they come with a question, whenever they show any sign of wanting to please themselves. And I always say that when a lady stands in the mirror, small lady, starting beautifying their lips and then trying to do the hair and all that, trying to model, yes, it's a good thing, but that is where you start from. Because that lady want to become, or that girl want to become a lady, want to become a woman, wanted to exhibit some kind of traits. So you need to be able to, as it were, discuss that with them.
Certainly. I think that you need to start early because they've started talking about it already. They're talking about it and they're streaming on their phones, on their iPads, and they're watching things and they're coming to their own conclusions about sex. So I know as Ghanaians, we don't like to discuss sex very much, but if we want our children to grow up healthy and whole, this is a conversation that we must have, and we must make them feel safe that they can talk about it. You know, a lot of people who struggle with homosexuality trace it back to being abused as children. And so if the sexuality is attacked at a young age, it causes a lot of confusion. So it's very, very important for you to discuss with your children. I say as early as 10 if you must, or even younger if you see them being curious about things, so that you dispel all the myths and the curiosity and they have a realistic approach to sex.
You know, in this current dispensation where there's so many busy working parents and we have to leave children in the hands of helps, there's also that issue where there's so much familiarity between the child and the help, and so they may take advantage and do something. But even in all honesty, when the child attempts to report, even though you may believe, let's say this is a situation where you really don't have, it's difficult getting help. These are real issues. How does someone bridge that gap and try to maneuver their way in such a situation?
It's a bit sensitive and you must do it strategically. Because on one side, the person is helping you. The other side, there's some kind of abuse there. Now, when it happens like that, you, the mother or the father, you have to tame yourself. As painful, piercing it could be, tame yourself and give a listening ear to the child. All right? And then let the child also get to know that, oh, you, father, mother, you are there in support. I could still come back to you. You are believing in me. All right? Don't let me live in guilt. Don't let me be ashamed of myself. So if you can create that environment, the child will have a little bit of a confidence. Then you move to the next stage. You call whoever the man or the lady is, some kind of mature talk. If possible, you bring in somebody. That A, B, C, D is what we've heard. We don't want to try, prolong this issue, but we want you to, as it were, tell us exactly what the child is saying. Okay? Because when we bring in the child will say it as it is. But we don't want the child to know that there's that confrontation that is going on. So we just want to handle this maturely. So if it indeed is like that, then of course the action starts ought to be taken, and then the police and the rest will come in.
Right, but Michelle, let me flip it.
Well, you know they're never going to say they did it. So.
Of course, yes. But then you know the traces in terms of the lying. See, if someone is lying, you will see. Come on, you realize that there's that inconsistency in the argument. You see it. Yes.
But let me flip the story. Whereas it's the maid or the help who has been abused by a child of the family, seemingly because the parents will tend to side with their child, that house help who doesn't have anyone to talk to, who doesn't have anyone to actually trust enough to tell the story, goes unabated. What do we do about that?
Children abusing the help? Yes. I mean, so what is the age range for this? Because that's kind of a strange one.
It could be teenagers and a younger help, or an older child and a younger, help.
Well, then they need to both be brought together and addressed together. And the child needs to know that that is unacceptable, and there will be a punishment for it if it continues.
So what kind of punishment would you mete out to your own child who's abusing a help?
Well, you've got to find out what hurts that person.
Right.
You know, it might be taking away the car keys or whatever it is that hurts that person. They've got to know that that is unacceptable and that it's also unlawful.
Right.
So they are putting themselves in a situation where if the help reports them to the police, they can be arrested.
Right.
Yeah.
And you think that will solve the issue?
You know, this one is like, that's my child. I don't want my child to go into the public to be seen as the question mark.
Sure.
So every parent, one way or the other, would like to shield, start protecting. And then in a more of a hard way, trying to send the lady off, which is not good at all.
Right.
What you ought to do is that a harm has been done, so let's now invite the lady or whoever it is, and then talk to as to what is it. And then let the lady realize that, look, there's going to be a punishment that your son is going to go through. All right? Possibly we will send him to police station if that's what you want. So paint the picture to the lady. If the lady says, Mama, it's okay, Auntie, it's okay, then that's fine. That's fine. Then we can see how well we can compensate. But the harm has already been done. So give that lady a second of hope.
So finally, now let's go to the workplace. Sexual harassment in the workplace. Oftentimes, the ladies who are, you know, they say the ladies tempt the men, if there's lack of any better word than that, because she seemingly was wearing a certain type of clothing. But it's never the man who can tempt the lady, whereas some men also dress seductively. So when we come to addressing these real issues on the ground, where do we draw the fine lines? Is it enough if someone touches me and I'm unhappy? I can tell the person, well, I think this is harassment, and so I'm taking you on. But oftentimes, you know, it's subordinate and the boss. The subordinate is afraid to talk because then if I speak, I'll be sacked. So how do we maneuver around these issues?
I would say that a man's first look is not evil.
Okay.
Yeah, the second look is interpretation, wanting to have. All right. So when you came around, assuming Nama, you are my subordinate, I'm the boss, and you came, you dress gorgeous, like you're like, you're looking good.
Right.
And then your response gives me, instead of giving me a sharp thank you, sir, and you try to, as we dance around, it's a message.
Right.
So I'm going to read in between the responses, and I come as, okay, can I? And you more or less give in, it means you are allowing me.
Quickly, before you move on, that response that I gave you was not an invitation to anything.
Fantastic.
It could just be, well, when you said, that's how I am naturally.
Good.
So I'll be like, oh, thank you.
But that is the first one. The second one, the third one, that you are improving the gestures.
Right.
And I'm saying that the second look of every man, there's some kind of a question mark in it. Okay. I would love to get close. I want to see what is in behind. All right? So don't even allow that. But again, if it's a subordinate and then a manager sort of issue, then it could be that the manager is using a sort of question mark, something you want to be done, and you're not getting it. And then the man says, I'll go in and get it done for you. So some kind of a favor.
Right.
That when I'm able to get it for you, he's not asking, pay me back, but some kind of a gesture. So we ought to look at what is really going on. What is the issue? Not emotional basis. We get to look at what is really happening. Because if you're working with me and it's all about work, functionality, let's go by that rather than the emotional aspect.
Right.
All right? And again, when you are left alone with the boss, then be careful. The door must always be open. It need not be closed. So you have to watch. There's so many things that goes in between this. So many things.
Yeah.
It could start from outside. It could even start from the interview point.
Right.
Oh, yes. Because your numbers are there, your details are there, and you yourself could probably send in the details. Okay, so this is a bit sensitive.
Yeah.
We are not saying that the men, they go pouncing and the ladies also come. No, but there's something that goes on before that thing can actually come. All right. If I see you and I touch you, and I say, it's okay, and I do again, and what is that? You are communicating something to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are some men that are not deterred by anything, even when you're being very professional. And so in that case, you have to nicely say, sir, I am here to do my work. If there's something else that you're looking for, I am not the one, and I don't want to make this an issue. That's how you deal with it. I don't want to make this an issue. That is a loaded statement to him, that you will say something if it continues. And I think that a lot of times women suffer in silence. And so you need to actually note every time that it happens and let someone else know, so that there is a paper trail and someone else knows, HR, someone in your department, so that when you have to bring it up, if it gets to that point, there are other people who can back your story and say, yes, you know, she mentioned that this happened, da 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 da. Because I think that what happens is we allow ourselves to be intimidated. And it's a different day. Women are not doing that anymore. And as you know, there are campaigns around the world at this point, Me Too and all the other things that are happening with men falling from high positions because of the exposure of sexual harassment in the workplace. In high levels, you know. So this is something that I think that women have to deal with differently. Their posture has to be different because most of the time we're used to being able to use our womanliness to get things that we want. And I think now we just have to be excellent in the marketplace and not rely on being a woman. Right. And I think that when you carry yourself a certain way, it sends a signal to that guy. This is not one to play with.
Mama, I want to also say that every woman is so powerful. For something to happen, you are the one supposed to say yes to it. If you don't want it, go straight and say, I don't want it. Right. That 2 words, yes and no, it's so powerful. So if I get to hold you and I don't want to go to the next stage, what do you say?
No.
No. And no means no to me. But if I try force it, then it means that there's a different interpretation to it.
But that's the same vein, because I'm coming to that. There have been examples where people in the sexual act, they've said no, and the man says, oh, when they say no, it means go on.
No.
Yeah, you
that
hear
is
these
a mentality
stories
that we had gotten because we feel that when you say no, your no is weak.
Yeah.
But let your no be strong.
Right.
Shout it out. And as Michelle was saying, let somebody else know. Because when you say no, the no should not come, no. Yeah? And then somebody will hear from other side. Whoever is doing that will just ward off.
Right. This is the other thing. He said something about setting boundaries, doors being open, not allowing yourself to be alone with that person. If they ask you to stay late for work, just say, you know, I really cannot do that. I think that you have to be wise about how to handle it. And the other thing is you should never allow yourself to be threatened with, you know, I'm going to take your job if you don't do this. You know what? There are other jobs. And, you know, if you're trusting God, he will replace it and make it an even better and bigger job. So I think that we should no longer allow the intimidation of losing your job or being demoted and all these other things that people do. And that's why it's very important to have the paper trail and have other people in awareness so that if something takes place as you getting demoted for no good reason or you getting fired for no good reason, you can then say, this is why I have witnesses to this. You understand? Yes.
Very well, guys. I'm sure you've enjoyed this chat. We wouldn't want to end, but it's time to wrap up. So certainly, I've been speaking to Kweku Edumata, he's a counselor, and Michelle McKinney-Hammond, also a counselor. I'm sure you enjoyed this talk on sexual harassment. In this festive season, do look out for anyone who attempts to harass you one way or another and speak up. There are people out there who are willing to help you. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more here on New Day. Stay with us. So for entertainment, Ebony's manager Bullet of Rough and Smooth fame wants bloggers to look beyond Ebony's choice of clothes and talk about her daring exploits. He touted the 20-year-old's ability to record back-to-back hits as a feat equally worth trumpeting. But is Ebony capable of winning the VGMA Artiste of the Year? Owusu Warai speaks to Bullet to find out more.
Bad girl bunny in dilemma. Looking back 2 years ago till now, what you have covered, the mouse you have covered, you must certainly feel proud.
I'm very proud about it, and the media is not even talking about it. That's the sad part of it. Like, they are talking about the negative side, and the media is not even talking about a 20-year-old girl from nowhere who has just broken into the mainstream. It's not easy. They should talk about it. 5 hits back to back. Five hits back to back. It's not easy. I mean, they should talk about the talent side.
Beyond Ebony's hit songs, the coupe singer has also been in the news for what critics describe as showing off too much flesh, dressing indecently, and being a bad influence. Ebony's manager, Bullet, however, sees that as a negative energy.
Let me speak to you. Unyaba Sebe, na cameraman. I could zoom in, baby, and nobody is talking about the cameraman. So that's it. I don't know, but nobody is talking about the camera. It can happen to anybody. Even a man, your zip can open like that. So if my zip open, should you zoom it? But then, Obianka, independent, could zoom in. as much as I'm working on yourself, they should also talk about photographer now, go zoom in, and then now who go into I say, go zoom in, and
there are talks that it is possible Ebony will win the next VGMA as the first female artist, looking at the hit that she has offered for the past 2 years. And what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, whatever happens is God. And if they're going to talk about releasing hits, being on all the platforms, organizing her own shows, traveling and playing show, and the impact she have on people and her fan base, I think she deserves to win Artist of the Year. But it's too early.
Well, that's Ebony there. But Brad, you've heard the new song, Mama She.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah. It's a good one, isn't it?
I love the girl.
I think she's done well.
She's a great
I mean,
girl. Yeah, she is.
At
She's
the
great.
age she is,
Yes.
haven't done back-to-backs.
Yeah, I think that the thought about what she's been doing on stage, I think that I totally disagree. Look, when you're on stage, you are acting, okay? What you do there is an art. You need to perfect it. You need to get the people to like you. I've seen Ebony a couple of times right here in our studios, and the way she dresses up. She doesn't wear what we see her wear on stage into the studio here. Okay, so when you meet her around, she's not also dressed that way. So really, it's not a big deal. But she's acting on stage, so she need to act. Okay, and acting is acting. It doesn't matter what you have to do to attract the people, your fans. You do it.
But I mean, that may be for some people, but also some have said, particularly in our context, in our culture, you know, we frown upon these kind of things, exposing certain parts of your body. Because we've seen people like Miss Bell told that particular line and it hasn't gone too well for them. And even on hindsight have reported that that is not the best way to portray or bring out your career. It may be there may be her genre of music, that's how they dress. But we stand to be corrected, because when you say she came into the studio, she wasn't dressed like that, that's not what most people see. Most people see that act and what she wears on the stage. That is her platform.
Yes.
And what they see, some are also saying they're not comfortable with. So they have a fair view.
In any case, the reference to our culture, the kind of music that she plays, is it part of our music?
Well, it's been tweaked.
Yes.
It's both ours and foreign music that has been.
She's not engaged in any so-called our culture thing. This is something that has gone global. The young lady is only using the skills she has. She's making it. I think that what I feel is that people are attempting to bring her down because she's a woman. That's what I feel. And for me, it's not right. Look, when you argue that the Beyoncés and co have been wearing this bikini on stage, they claim that that is their culture. Who said that our culture frowns on that? Who said it? Have you been seeing the local movies, the Ghanaian, Nigerian movies that you see? What are people wearing? Don't you see men with only something covering here in the chief's house? Don't you see women with only this part covered and this part and the rest of the body is there? So which culture are we? Please, let us allow the young lady. You won't find her wearing that scanty dress on the street. When she's on stage, allow her to fly. It is called acting, and she's acting.
But so the other question is, if she was acting and she wasn't in, like you call it, scanty clothing or skimpy clothing for that matter, would she still have been able to carry out her music as?
I wouldn't watch her.
You wouldn't watch?
No.
So what attracts you? I
wouldn't follow her songs if she's not that vibrant on stage.
Right.
If she's not showing that kind of fashion sense on stage, I wouldn't. I mean, the likes of the others who were trying to do her life have been on stage with all the body covered and all that. I'm not saying they should expose some parts of it, but I think that a little attraction, that's the trick. And that is what is working. Okay, so let's allow the young lady to move on. I am not also saying that she should go on stage throwing every part of the body, but I'm saying that when she mounts the stage, what she does there is not her. Okay, it is acting. She is acting.
Right.
So whatever she brings on stage, please don't judge her. She's only acting so that you enjoy it. Okay, I mean, I don't know if you people want to see people dressed in all kinds of things.
Well, so Bright is a fan of Ebony, so of course you understand the passion, and he's moving. Like he said, I agree. It's about the talent, what she does, and if what she does is good enough, certainly we wish her all the best as VGMA goes out there. If she deserves to win, I'm sure she'll be crowned Artist of the Year. But it's time to wrap up on the show. Today is a beautiful Thursday. Bright has started his weekend. We will officially start weekends tomorrow, but certainly we hope we've gotten you ready to kick and make, I mean, whatever plans you have, make them come to fruition before Saturday or Friday evening, because once it hits the weekend, most of us just go to sleep off. But yeah.
Okay, so thanks so much for having joined us this morning. We're so glad that we serve you the best of breakfast this morning, and we'll do same tomorrow, wrapping up the week and launch you into a great weekend. Christmas is coming. We're excited about it. Certainly we'll be with you throughout. We'll excite you more as we hit the festive season. Johnny is still taking a rest.
He's still taking care of Mary.
Yes, and very soon we will see him back with all the good things that he has for you. Have a wonderful Thursday morning.